only because we have pads of paper and pens, and you guys can utilize that as well. Here is the SWOT analysis. Thank you very much for filling that out. Really, this is the backbone of what we're doing tonight. This is a compilation of information. This is the input that people are giving to give you insight into where are our goal areas, what should our priorities be, how do we then take those priorities and translate those into goals. And we're going to be utilizing that. I have just a couple, or a few I should say, sample goals from other Shenandoah, which is the largest school district in my area. They're enormous. They do a top-notch job. We'll take a look at them. Cohoes, I think they do a nice job as well. And then I gave you Ballston Spa. The thing I'll say about those three examples really quickly is they have somebody that either works in their district or they go through the BOCES, and they have somebody that works for communications, and they create a stellar document. Do you have to do that? Absolutely not. A lot of boards don't. They just have it on a piece of paper they put on their website because it serves a purpose. But if you do want to create a document, I think those are very nice examples of what you guys can do. So, before I have Howie come up here, I'll kind of click through a couple of these things. So our agenda tonight, like I said, we're going to strive for efficiency. I've done workshops like this numerous times. So my job here is to guide you through. If we get stuck in minutia, my job is to help lift you out of that, because really we want to focus on the big picture tonight, and we're going to be able to do that very effectively. In just a minute, I'm just going to have you guys go around and introduce yourselves. It helps me understand you a little bit better. But there's one key question that I think is going to be helpful for tonight as well. I'm going to do a very brief presentation. Like I said, it's probably going to be about 20, 25 minutes tops. And then from there, I'm going to guide you through the process. And I'll explain the process as we go through the PowerPoint. So what I would like you to do, and we're going to start over here and just kind of go around the horn. If you could just quickly introduce yourself. I know everybody else probably knows your name, but obviously I'm learning here. You just tell your name. What is your position? Are you a board member? Are you an admin? Please let me know. How long have you either been on the board or worked in the district? And then the last one. If you had to choose just one top priority, and that's going to be a tough one perhaps, because we would like everything under the sun for our school districts. But if there was one thing that you said, you know what, our district needs to focus on this in order to make improvements, what would that be? So what do you perceive, and this is your opinion, what is the top priority or need of the district? So we're going to start over here, and we'll start with Ed.
Oh.
All
right.
You were closest to me, Ed, that's why.
All right, I'm Ed Corona. And I've been a trustee for almost 3 years. And what I think we need, wow. I was going to say, I'd like to focus out, it's kind of a continuing thing, but I like to focus on technology. I'm not saying it's like a need, but I like that focus.
Absolutely, and that one could expand outwards. We're 20th century schools. We're trying to put 21st century technology into that, and we all know that technology is extremely important. Thank you.
Michelle, Board of Ed Trustee, months. And what do I believe the top priority should be? Mental health.
Mental health, excellent. Thank you.
Beth Friedman, I'm Deputy Superintendent. I've been here since 5/6, so it's 14 years. And what do I believe the district's top priority is? The top priority has to be safety. And safety with a lot of
Yes.
with a lot of arms.
Absolutely, because that's such a big topic, and it's one of extreme importance today. Thank you.
Tom McDade, Assistant Superintendent for Business and Operations. This is my fourth year here, and since I'm the business guy, I would say fiscal responsibility.
Excellent.
Same old answer.
Tom.
Broken record. Business guy.
I'm Hillary. I'm one of the principals. It's my first year.
Excellent.
Top priority. I'll go with.
What was the Tom?
Sorry,
That's
Tom.
right.
I'm going to go along with technology as well.
Technology as well. Excellent.
Ed Murphy. I'm the assistant to the superintendent for pupil services and special education. I've been here for 3 years, and as a psychologist by trade, I'm going to have the second mental health.
Second to mental health, and that's a very long title.
Yeah, it is.
Vincent Lantini, Board of Ed member for 6 months. I'm going to go with individualized education.
Jennifer?
So Jennifer Highland, Board of Ed. This is my 3rd year, which is like 21 dorm years. And I would say the top priority is really the whole child.
The whole child. So these kind of two, somewhat are.
I know it's all encompassing, but you can't focus on just one area.
Absolutely. Excellent, thank you.
Hi, Tracy Miller, so I'm a board trustee. This is my 2nd year. And I, looking at these things, I first wanted to say mental health, and then I actually did think about fiscal responsibility.
Okay.
I don't know actually how I would put this, but we need to focus on the actual business of educating our children. Let's focus on education and the subjects like that these kids need to know to succeed in junior high school and then in high school. So like the foundation, the basics.
I like that.
The junior high school is 1983 or something.
Oh, shush.
And, we often hear that buzz phrase, college and career readiness, but
Yeah, no,
it's
we're
such a
not there.
nebulous phrase, and so
Yeah,
that's
right.
important. Every board should really have that discussion of what does that mean, and then match that to your curriculum, and is that actually helping our students reach that next level?
Hi, Laura DeLuca, I'm a principal, and I'm in District 14 medicine. I think I'm the oldest one in the district.
Are you really?
Seniority?
Yeah,
Wow.
always on.
Wow.
Right?
They were here before.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So is that in Tokyo?
I've seen a lot.
Wisdom.
And as far as top priority for me for improvement, all those things on the list, and I think when I look at meeting the needs of the individual child and how it stems on all of those things, like when you're meeting
Absolutely.
their needs, mental health wise, technology wise, which goes with mental health, with the cyberbullying and everything else that comes with safety. So I could fit them all in, and yes, Tom's fiscal responsibility.
Excellent.
with all that.
So
But
it's
Check.
kind of across the board.
yeah, but it's meeting the needs of the individual child.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, Megan Ryan, board member, just since September. And I would just say, I think all of these are great, but also just to go back to, I guess, a little bit of what Tracy said, offering competitive programs, and making sure that we are really, preparing the kids to go on to, middle MAMs and in high school.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm Sam Carter, I'm the facilities director. Been here for about a year and a half, or maybe a little more. And I think we need to improve on long-term planning and everything that comes with it. Looking way down the road, not a 5-year plan, maybe more like a 10-year plan. And I have a different lens than most of the folks here because I'm the facilities, buildings and grounds. So
Absolutely.
I don't get as involved in curriculum or student, the mental component. So my goal is making the most with our money.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, buildings and grounds ties into perhaps just about every single one of those points that are out there. It's one of those things that sometimes gets overlooked, but it's such a crucial aspect to the education of our children. Thank you.
Cindy Seniak, I'm the superintendent of schools. So I guess I'm the last one to speak. Oh, so, listening to all these are all so important. So first of all, as a superintendent, it's my job to provide a balance of it all. But I really see my long-term responsibility is to prepare not only the students but the staff to move us to greatness. Because we're an amazing school district, but that doesn't mean we stop. There is no finish line, and it's a mindset and being able to balance all of those things as we move and not leaving any child behind or any piece behind to greatness.
Excellent. So I put moving district forward. I think that correct? Excellent, I like that, thank you.
Good is the enemy of great. Good is the enemy of great.
Absolutely.
And I agree with everyone. You know, but it's like the child, and then the umbrella comes down, like this kind of curriculum that's really important.
Absolutely.
Right? Teacher PD, professional development, that's really important. And I'm also a huge believer of SEL, social emotional learning.
Yes.
By all.
Excellent. So thank you very much for responding. And I think, we kind of get a sense across the spectrum of the various things that districts really need to be focusing in on to help move the district forward. And that's really why we're here tonight, is to really have that conversation openly. And I'm going to encourage conversation amongst you. And how do we move this district forward? And then, what are the steps that are involved in that? So I'm just going to kind of quickly go through a little bit about what you guys are getting into. I want to talk a little bit about goals. We all have sort of, a common understanding. And then we're really going to be immersing ourselves into our work tonight. So really where I always start out when I have this conversation about goal setting is the typical question. You want to click that fine up. I usually start out by asking this question. Effective leaders live their lives backward. What do you believe that means? What does that mean, effective leaders live their lives backwards? In other words, what do they start with first? They start with the end in mind. They start with a vision. If you look at any successful corporation, and I'll take Apple, for example, because they've been able to do things that no other company really has been able to do. Their vision is to create simplistic, streamlined technology that everybody wants to have. They don't just do, meaning making computers. They believe in what they're trying to achieve, and that's partly why they're so successful. We apply this to school districts because part of a successful school district is understanding what's on the horizon of having that common vision. So one of the things that I'm going to point out, and this is kind of a point to kind of go down here, if you don't mind clicking. How many of you have heard school boards operate at the 30,000 foot view? What does that mean, the 30,000 foot view? Yes. You look at the big picture. Tonight, really, that's our objective, is to look at the big picture. However, there are times when individual school board members, or even school boards, if you just click all the way to the last slide there, which is the weeds, sometimes what happens is school board, very well intended, they can descend from that 30,000 foot view, and before you know it, they can get lost in the weeds.
Oh.
Our job tonight is not to get lost in the weeds. My job is to help guide you. Our job tonight is to look at that very high level because goals are formulated looking at the big picture. If we start talking about teacher assignments and curriculum, these are things that get board members caught in the weeds because that's not where you operate. You operate at the policy level, you operate by guiding the district into the future. We need to understand the big picture and what makes up that big picture without getting caught in those weeds. So a lot of times what happens, and I apologize for this picture, it's the only before and after picture that I can find. I'd love to find one with a shirt, but that's okay. I think we get the idea here. A lot of times we talk about goals and objectives synonymously, and I just want to help us understand that there is a fundamental difference between the two. So I think at one time in our life or another, we've all tried to lose weight, so I think this is a great example. Say, for example, I set a goal to lose 50 pounds. Just humor me for a minute. How can I do that? How can I lose 50 pounds? What could I do? I could exercise more. What else could I do? What could you do? I could watch what I eat. I could diet, right? But does every diet and exercise program work the same for everybody? So how do I know what's going to work best for me? What could I do? I could experiment. What else could I do? I can go to a nutritionist. So what I can start to do is to tap into specialists, somebody that can provide me information to help guide me. And that's a crucial aspect of when we start to set goals. So humor me again. I'm now dieting, I'm exercising. How do I know if I'm making progress? I can weigh myself, right? I have visual evidence. I feel good. Perceptional data, meaning people are saying, wow, you look good, my clothes. So I'm using data. Data is guiding me as I move through this. So bada bing, check me out now. Here's the big question. After I'm done losing the weight, am I really done, or is there something much bigger that I'm working towards? That's what, so here's what we're talking about. Really, I set a goal. My goal is not to lose 50 pounds. My goal is to lose weight and maintain a healthy lifestyle. That's the big picture. So then what is losing 50 pounds? What is that then? It's not a goal, that's my objective. That's the fundamental difference between the two. So if we take a look here and if we break it down, if you just click to there's 3 boxes all the way down to the bottom. So this is sort of the structure and framework that we're going to be operating in tonight. If we were to apply this to a school district, for example, the way that this works is the board and superintendent, they come together typically in a workshop like we're doing tonight, discussing about what our overarching goal is. So when we're using weight loss, we apply it to a school district, our broad goal could be the district is committed to establishing and maintaining a healthy weight and lifestyle. We then need an objective that is going to help lead us to that overarching goal. This is really where the superintendent and administrator, they begin to drive the boat. Sometimes the school board is part of this, but they're really taking a back seat because what we're talking about now is setting out specific objectives. We talked about a minute ago that you need specialists to help you achieve your goals. Well, you have specialists working in your district. They're the administrators and the superintendent. The board hires a superintendent to be the CEO. So really you're talking about where is this coming from. So we have an example here. The district will lose 25 pounds by 20XXS, et cetera, et cetera. That's our objective. But there's one more thing that we need. There's one more piece of this plan that we haven't talked about yet. If you click, the last thing that you're going to have in place is an action plan. This is really going to begin to spell out who's doing what, where, and how are we going to measure this. These are the 3 main components that really go into district goal setting and really implementing it in a systemic effort. Our job tonight is to really look at this top part. This is our objective. We're going to walk away tonight with anywhere from 3 to 5 broad visionary type goal statements. Once we have that, the next step of the process is to identify specific areas. That comes out through the SWOT analysis, that comes out through understanding what needs to be focused on to move us in that direction. Your superintendent and administrative team most likely will develop specific objectives, and then we'll have an action plan. This is a great time of year to be doing goals, by the way, because what are you just about jumping into? Budget season. So what can you guys do once you have your goals?
Spend money.
Spend money!
Tom.
You advertise that you have goals and how your budget aligns to your goals to help push the district forward. So if you could click for me. Goals and objectives, yes, there is a difference. When you talk about goals, they're more general, they're broad, they're abstract, they're a little bit untangible. When you talk about objectives, those are more specific, they're more measurable, they're concrete. You need both of these things working together in order to produce results. Can you have objectives? Yeah, you can, but what's the bigger picture that you're really striving towards? Can you have the bigger picture and no objectives? Sure, but you're not going to go anywhere. So you need all of these components working together. So this is just elements of district goals that usually are just shown within various statements. A lot of times what we're doing here is we need to understand why we exist. We need to understand where we're going, and by doing so, what that allows us to do is to create goals and align our resources so everybody's moving forward and we're going to see the progress that we want to achieve. So really what we're doing here, this is part of the goal setting process. We need to assess, well, where are we now? Where do we want to be? And then we kind of got to perform a gap analysis. If we're here today and we want to be there tomorrow, how are we going to cross that bridge? That's where the planning comes into play. I've worked a lot with school boards in which I'll ask them, hey, you guys had district goals, that's phenomenal. How'd you guys progress? What achievements did you make? And all of a sudden you see the feet shuffling, the eyes going all over the place because what didn't they do? They didn't monitor the goals. That's a responsibility of the board. It's not to ensure that people are doing their jobs throughout the system, that's the superintendent, but getting feedback to ask questions about are sufficient resources being directed? Are we seeing the improvements? If not, why? And maybe we need to reformulate plans. So these are just sort of the steps that we're going to be walking through tonight with this process. You click for me here. So one of the things that I often suggest you do is a great starting point in the future. If you're really going to develop a process that works for you, my suggestion would be to take a look at your vision statement if you have one. If you don't have one, the goals that you formulate tonight, they are broad and visionary in nature. We should also take a look at your mission statement. There's a lot of benefits behind it. Those are just some questions you can use. Really, when you do goal setting, it's the needs assessment, and that's the SWOT analysis that you guys did for me. That helps you uncover what are our needs, and then how do we move the district forward. Really what we want to do is we want to look both internally and externally. We need to understand what's happening within our district, where are our priorities, but we also have to understand what's happening outside the control of the school district. What are things like demographics? Are they changing? Do we have an aging population? What's happening at the state level? What's happening at the national level? We need to understand what are our roadblocks, what are our potential barriers, because we need to create realistic goals. Data is something that I know is like nails on a chalkboard sometimes, but really we talk about data-driven decision making. I don't suggest that boards, spend a whole day disaggregating and diving into data. Boards, administrators, superintendents, you guys are presented data all the time. It's really being cognizant of that and what that data is telling you, and then how to fold that into the goal-setting process. Different types of data you can see up here. You have student achievement, demographics, programs, and then perceptional data. Here's the thing about perceptional data I want you to be cautious of. Every community has a group of people called the CAVE people. How many people are familiar with that acronym? CAVE. Citizens Against Virtually Everything. Doesn't matter what you're doing, guess what? You're doing it wrong, right? That initiative that you just undertook, guess what? That was the wrong one. Here's the thing. CAVE people represent the smallest portion of your population, but they have the loudest voices. Sometimes the CAVE people approach board members and present a problem that is a crisis erupting, and then board members run with it like the truth. Be cautious. Sometimes they're right, other times they're not. The job of the board is not to pick up the torch and champion the CAVE people's causes, but to explore those and bring those to the table to see if in fact it is a crisis. So one of the things we got to be cautious of tonight is that while we're working through this, don't say, well, I was talking to Jane Smith at the grocery store, and she said our math and reading program is deplorable. How do we know? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But don't infuse that into the process. We need to be aware that part of your job is exploring to find out whether there's truth behind this. So you guys filled out that SWOT analysis. Thank you again. I asked you guys to tell me about the strengths of your district, what things are positive, what things are not working well, your weaknesses, those areas of improvement. Opportunities, what are things that are outside the district that we could latch onto? For example, wraparound services. We talked about things like mental health and safety. Are there things out there in the community that the district could tap into to help us achieve those initiatives? And then again, threats, I know that's a negative word, but again, we're talking about things that are outside our control. So here's what we're going to do very shortly. I'm going to walk you through the process. Very shortly, you guys are on your groups and I gave you highlighters. What I'm going to ask you to do when we're done going through this is the first step of this process is you're going to individually just go through your SWOT analysis. I'm going to ask you guys to highlight things that are jumping out at you that you perceive to be things that are important, priorities, needs of our district. Sometimes they're going to be repetitive throughout because a lot of times we understand the work that needs to get done. That's step number one. I'm going to encourage you guys to have discussions at your table. If you want to lean over and ask questions, that's what we're here for. So that's going to be step number one. What we're going to do after we take a look at our SWOT analysis, I'm going to ask you guys to come up with goal categories. Goal categories is a way for us to begin classifying that information to the SWOT, from the SWOT. The way that I perceive this is that it's like walking into a department store. How do we know where things are? Well, they're in departments. If I need a football, I go to sporting goods. If I need shoes, I go to men's shoes. That's essentially what we're doing with our goal categories. Here's the thing. This is a time not to bicker over what we should call the category's name. All right? That's not the important piece of all of this. It's just pointing to an area. The meat and bones is in our statement. I've had boards, and I remember one time, 45 minutes, this woman challenged me over what curriculum meant. I said, I don't care what you call it. Are people going to understand what it means? That's the important thing. So here are just some examples. I gave 3: student achievement, health and safety, budget and resources. You can click for me, and then just go to the end of this slide. The next step of the process, after we have our goal categories, I'm going to ask each group to go through their SWOT analysis. And I'm going to ask you for each goal category that we've agreed upon, you're going to classify anywhere from 3 to 5 top priorities that you either pick up from the SWOT analysis or that you know for a fact that needs to be focused in upon. And you're going to list that underneath those goal categories. And I'll remind you again, the one thing I'm going to say is that some of these things probably could fit under more than one category. Just place it under one, don't duplicate. After we do that, what we're going to do is the fun part, which is really writing the goal statement. And as I said, we're going to strive for efficiency. We have 5 groups, so we're going to spread the work out. If we have 5 goal statements, each group is going to be responsible for writing 1. And I'll give you guidance in terms of how you go about doing that. So the question is, well, if one group is writing a goal statement, how do I get my input into that? Well, at the end, we're going to put all the goal statements up, and then we're going to go through each one, and that's where you're going to have the opportunity, all of us, to say, I like this, or this needs to be changed, or we need to add this. That's a time for everybody to get their input in. Our job tonight is not to wordsmith these to death. Our job is to walk away with a rough draft that embodies the things that we want to be reflective in that statement. The next part after tonight is to hand it off to somebody. It could be somebody on the board, or if you have a communications person, a public relations, somebody who's good at wordsmithing, to come up with that final statement that you guys can agree upon. So to give you an example of how this is done, say under my goals category for student achievement, and this is just fictitious, 82% graduation rate, and weak bridge and transition programs. So how do we reflect that into a high-arching visionary statement? And here's an example. To graduate all students who are prepared to succeed in tomorrow's world by cultivating and sustaining a high-quality, comprehensive, and rigorous academic program where each individual is supported and challenged to reach their full potential. That's long. Does yours have to be that long? It can be if you want to. There's really no rules behind to write these. My personal opinion, less is more. Most goal statements that I see, they're very short statements. I sometimes get challenged on this where somebody will say, that's a great statement, Jamie, but it's all fluff. Well, you're right to a certain degree. You would be right if you weren't involved in this process. You would be right if you didn't live in this district. The only analogy that I could ever come up with to help explain this, and it's the worst one ever, but I think it works, is what makes a word an actual word in our English language other than the fact that it has to have a vowel? Somebody gave me that. It has to have meaning. If you guys didn't do your SWOT analysis, if you just created that statement out of thin air, it would have no meaning, and then it's gibberish. But because of the work that we do, that's what gives it meaning. That's what helps the board and administrators understand the big picture and to help align everybody's work to move in that direction. So again, big picture, visionary goal. There are times, however, where boards want to set priorities as well. If you click through to the bottom, I'll just give you an example. So what I want to show you here is sometimes they'll have what is a goal statement, and then they'll list out priorities underneath. So I'll just read the first one. Deploy early intervention strategies to provide support and remediation for at-risk students. Here's my question. Does it tell you what those strategies are? No. This is, again, a 30,000-foot view. It's a little bit more specific, but whose job is it to recommend that support and programs for remediation? That comes from your administrators. So again, if you say, well, we need these priorities, and all of a sudden you're saying things like improve the graduation rate to 99%, you're stepping a little bit outside your domain. I love that, I think it's the Geico commercial, stay in your lane, bro. So that's what we need to do tonight, stay in your lane, bro. So remember, if you click for me, so these are just some, just a few hints, and again, we want to keep our goal statements down to anywhere from 3 to 5. More than that, you're really going to be spinning your wheels and diluting resources. Role of the superintendent, I'll just go through this quickly. After we have our goals tonight, like I said, your superintendent and administrators are going to start carving out more actionable goals. Probably will adhere somewhat similar to the SMART acronym: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Does it have to be written specifically to the acronym? No. It's really the comfort level and how your things get articulated, but it should encompass all of those elements that are up there. One of the things you want to be sure of when you have those specific objectives and you have your action plan, that there's a way for you to track your progress. Make sure that you guys, if you're going to set benchmarks, that you have a way to see whether or not you're going to reach those benchmarks. How are you going to measure progress? And these are just some questions that will help you guys determine that. So again, I showed you this framework before. Really tonight, where we're going to be focused in on is right up here. This is the work that comes later. This is just the framework, and again, out of our vision and mission, this is where it drives our goals and our objectives. It's not only a top-down, but it's a bottom-up approach as well, because our action plan objectives and our goals also lead us to fulfilling our mission and working towards our vision. This is just an example. I'll let you guys read that at your own leisure. Here's the thing that I want to get to. It's called cascading approach, and really that's what we're doing tonight. Cascading is stolen from the corporate world, if you're familiar with it. It's the notion that the top management formulates the goals and then is deconstructed and then implemented throughout the system. So when I was a teacher, for example, do you think I knew what the district goals were on any given year? God, no. I had no clue. Does that mean I wasn't working towards them? I was, but it was communicated to me differently. Everybody, I think every school district now has a parent portal. I'm going to date myself. That was new when I taught. And I remember our building objective was to implement and pilot this program. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was in line to our district goals. So don't think if your teachers don't know these, that they're not fulfilling them. They're just deconstructed and given to them differently, probably in the form of building level goals and objectives. So again, this just kind of shows you the framework for that. I already talked about this. Great time to do this because these goals are going to be implemented next year, correct? That gives time for the creation of the action plan and the objectives. Monitoring and adjusting, I said that that's a responsibility of the board. Just please note, hopefully we're familiar with lagging and leading indicators. Those are two types of data sources that are going to help you as you monitor your progress. Superintendent evaluation, I'm not going to get too far into this, but the superintendent evaluation really should be aligned to the district goals. It's an agreement between the board and the superintendent. It's a mutual agreement of what are the objectives that you're tasking the superintendent that will be part of the evaluation. So really what we're striving to do is to create a cycle of continuous improvement. My sort of a plan that I propose and that I implement in this process is very similar to strategic planning, except it's scaled down and manageable in the time limit that we have. So any questions before we dive in? Perfect. So as I said, this is somewhat of a loose format. What I'm going to ask you guys is I'm going to have you guys now, you can click for me, click, and keep it there. First step of the process, as I indicated before, if everybody could take out their SWOT analysis.
Andy, did you want to deconstruct that group because there's only two?
What do you think?
I think that, you know, I think it makes
I
sense.
will leave that up to you, absolutely. So why don't you decide who goes where?
I'm gonna let Joanne decide.
Okay.
She's
Good way to delegate.
I like that.
Okay.
I'm not going to you?
I still get my answers.
Fellow facilities, you know what I mean?
See, that's a smart move because nobody dares takes off the district clerk.
Never.
The district clerk walks on water.
No problem.
Joanne's gonna take some candid shots so we can tweet them out tomorrow and put on Facebook. I shall not be tweeted. Shat, did you sign a do not tweet? Okay.
All right, so again,
You realize
what we want to do now is we're going to go through our SWOT analysis. Everybody should have a highlighter. What I want you to do is to just start individually highlighting things that jump out at you. Things that you deem to be a priority, a need of the district. A lot of times you're going to see repetitive information throughout, and that's fine. You only need to highlight it once if you want to.
It's like a common theme.
This is going to be individual. What I'll encourage you to do while you're doing it individually, if you come across something that you think is really unique and you want to share, I would share, hey, did you guys read this? Or somebody wrote this. Or I don't understand what this says. Open up a little discussion amongst your tables. But all we're doing right now is just reading and highlighting. And in the back of our mind, we also want to begin to think, what should our goal categories be? If I had to classify this information into 3 to 5 broad categories, what might they be? And if you need help with that, inside one of the packets, there is a list of goal categories, and I'll direct you to that in just a few minutes. And again, feel free to eat, get coffee, use the baño.
No one knows which one. Are you the one that responded at 5 a.m.?
Oh, no. You go through all of it. Yep. once your group is done going over the SWOT, I'd like you guys to open up conversations at your table. And the conversation is going to revolve around, if we were to carve out 3 to 5 goal categories to classify this information, what categories would they be? What would we name them? To help you guys out, if you would take a look at the packet that says setting district goals, it looks like this. And if you turn to page 2, I gave some examples. Do you have to use these? Absolutely not. You can call the goal categories anything that you want to call them. Can you utilize these? Absolutely you can. But really the idea here is to have conversation about what's on the SWOT. And how to focus that conversation is about talking about how we could classify it. Once you have 3 to 5 goal categories that you feel really we could utilize, write them on a piece of chart paper very nicely with marker, so designating some of good penmanship, and then hand it off to me. So each group is going to come up with 3 to 5 goal categories.
You're the new guy. I'm sure your handwriting's right.
Let's see. Whose handwriting is nicer?
Nope.
I think there were a lot of
discussing technology. For me, at least, I highlighted that.
but there were also a couple
There's also a strength to do a lot more.
yes, that was very some of the sentences, like they have already been worked on. I.e. Communication,
And I put
Madonna, there was a
it also has a lot of
that right to make
programs together. So how do we increase revenue so we can enrichment
individualized
and also at the same time
organization. Still as opposed to just being safe, but
aggressive in the curriculum, things like that.
I'll catch up.
And we highlighted that technology.
But that goes during the preparation for global workers, you know what I mean?
I'm ready for it.
That
I mean, the things I keep seeing over and over is
Yeah, if you could write it, whatever you guys come up with, 3, 4, 5, and just put it on the chart.
everything that we struggle with comes back on dialogues and whether it's
well, it could just be overall finance.
overall finance.
Overall finance, because underneath finance would go funding, spending, and all of that, so how do we, underneath the finance components, and all the individual objectives, that's one.
other overall category.
They have over long-term technology, right, so I guess, and I think what you're saying, Tracy, is the learning kind of went up, the technology. We'll go like this. Two
I mean, Merrick's down.
So therefore, I think that whole piece,
Yeah, no,
just where The emphasis
Because that would then
they don't even understand the balance that helps them. No, you need to put this number in first, but why?
that is a Yeah.
And it drives them, that ties into the whole child mental health aspect as well, because each child is right, it's not all their own different goals.
Alright, so, we gotta go over these categories.
I know.
Yes, right, which I think, right.
Technology is everywhere.
That ties into all of it, keeping the community as well as
Finance funded.
That's what I hear a lot.
Those three are the ones that we have now.
It is.
I know.
Alright, so.
Alright, so that's
They have ownership and they feel that they
Like,
now,
Alright.
Everywhere. Almost everyone's time was technology.
Right, well, and what is one that
So if you look in here, what I put in there was a lot of enrichment,
modern strategy,
strategy,
so that could be technology, and this is upkeep, the facilities. Innovation, modern whole.
well, I'm trying to pull out the, right, so whatever you can behind all that. Right, and that's why I said individualized education. I don't know if that's right. Part of it, but I don't know if that's what you call it.
But what about your site?
Well, right, 'cause that's gonna be.
Stop, I mean, homework.
Continue to allow
Maybe that ties into innovation.
That was, yeah, she gets
She would have to
All of them.
Because one of the main reasons is we
That goes into the
failure.
standards.
Failing in
getting over that phase, the hub.
So,
and if you look at finance,
that's really, so what is that, so, right, even the green has.
Came out so excited about that.
And we just said, all right, you just need to give me $200.
Just
I mean, that's not a lot, but.
Those first three are all
So that's on the student.
But I definitely think we need an academic.
Something
to drive it.
Social media.
Let's take it as a they highlight any or circle anything that has to do with education and everything could fit in there.
look, that's what towers are supposed to.
How do we prepare them to go to?
And it's so funny because we had this conversation and of course the island, there's such a
So they have finance.
being in compliance and doing what's the right thing to do. And where do we all err on the side of it? Compliance, because I get down and says, no, and that's where that whole. I don't like red. Find out today.
I don't like red. Red is like a bad color.
Right, you don't have any, and that, if you wanna do a big plan, budget, take it out.
Right, right.
I know, I
There's a
saw
lot
it.
of that in here. You're gonna realize
I don't like the word.
You know, support.
Right.
Something like that, like,
Yeah.
Get on that shelf.
I don't think. You know, the whole idea of bringing the guidance counselor into was actually the idea of we had the emphasis on mental health. Just when it's lost that momentum.
That's one small size.
I find these things so interesting. It's like go and go, okay, now we're gonna turn to this free guy.
reaction. Create programs for students based
That's more what you said, individual student programs.
Instead of a big classroom,
Yeah,
dressing a classroom,
yeah,
picking out
more
kids.
individualized.
more individualized,
If you
challenging
instead of
your
growing,
higher level.
guess what? That is really the same.
Learners.
So,
I thought so too.
really,
And they kind of adopted that with personnel. Does that in a way, kind of support your lower level leaders.
well,
Gives you higher level leaders, a little more creative.
Is there an order we look at those in?
what do you think? Like environment is broad enough to your categories do you want?
I know, I
Yeah, but that is individual student.
Right.
You guys, five for you, all right.
Modern
We don't
education.
phrase it that way, it's not really what it means.
What is it?
Modern
It's almost like specialized.
That's nice, I like that. That might be added to this list.
You're seeing what.
Periodically, I update it, and then I tell people, I can't.
Yeah, I don't.
Because who's gonna know? I'm just kidding. I always give credit.
Oh, we don't.
Stop, people are separating. It's supposed to be intertwined.
Wait, I would say no, it wasn't.
What do you need, Jerry?
Creative structures, right, that's all we're doing. That would be your level. We need to come up with shared values. This isn't as easy as they are.
Yeah, the first one jump out at you and then you like stumble.
Why do we have a class? Totally.
Focus on.
And I feel like that's what we do with technology.
That
The
doesn't
teacher had
Yeah.
his advice, but then we don't cross it over to learning well enough.
Your strengths are this and your
And
strengths
that,
are that.
that definitely. And when people say, like, oh, this firm, we get all this great earnings, we have professional development, say, professional development. Yes, when you have to be able to give some learning experience, that's why we bought them first.
See those little nuances that.
Right. What's your example? Why didn't we stick with it? What makes this different? Compared to take on
I want to see groups, I want to see the higher level. Getting students together, low level learning with support, getting that extra attention, higher level learners, helping the younger kids even, that's what I want to see. I want to see those.
And if we could try to create our goal categories within the next 5 minutes, and again, we need 3 to 5.
we have
What do we call Daniel? What do we call that? Like what's the whole broad
and safety would go under.
Why didn't you think about that time and then at least.
That's how you get high
analysis. I feel like there's a, but that's the need that keeps going. Right.
It actually works better than just having it open for anybody.
And then, right. Tailored academic.
Red.
Personalized.
You guys have to figure out.
Shared value.
What color you want?
Want a dark blue?
There's no. Steel convention.
I don't have a pink that's not a highlight.
See that.
Oh, okay, where's the report?
Well, it depends on what we write underneath it, but by saying personalized curriculum, you're then telling administration, we like this, it's like, what do we want? That's how you think of it. See, I think of it, right, okay, so that's not good.
Customized.
Right.
That's why I'm using enhance.
You just like that it matches your dress.
What is our
What's it smell like, Jen?
Blueberry scented ones?
Alright,
Blueberry?
Howie's got like amazing handwriting, probably do too, but somebody's got to do the chart. My handwriting's not good, I'm a lefty.
Sam's,
Oh,
look
lucky
at that.
too.
I think you
Lucky
said
too.
Sam's handwriting is
Sam's
much
got
better.
good printing. Pretty good, like I do.
Sam Carter, facilities director.
Sam?
It's like you did in architecture.
That's true. You can do that. Yeah, Sam can do it.
Sam's mad.
Where's our chart? We have a chart.
You have time.
Well, we have four, so we're writing.
Yeah, we have.
We can work on it. I don't know if you wanna go for five. I like seven.
Did you get some control?
Tracy swiped our chart.
So you just write the goal categories that you guys feel that, you don't want to say that, it's not that important yet. Just the category.
So all I have to do is write the goal categories?
We're gonna write our.
Right now, just the categories.
Just the category.
Do we leave space or just write?
Just write them right out. We're gonna try to come in
And now are we
agreement.
prioritizing or just listing?
Just listing them.
Not in order of
No
importance?
prioritizing.
All right, so you're gonna do funding.
Yeah, we can.
You guys need this.
Money.
We'll go around.
So Tracy, I don't think
Like
it's.
the slow.
Technology.
It's oldest version. And those two tables up there are
Next was
white.
health and safety, including mental health. Children, safety, security, and all in the community. And then
Oh, that's driving?
academic or enhancing
I saw
academic
those at
programs.
post. Yeah.
And we're gonna be talking about sharing. So this is gonna change and look different to a
Didn't we have another one with
Community
community education, something like that?
Yeah, they look like little space.
Well, the goal has to be that
Well, then just
we
put eyes up.
try to keep the educational community together and involved.
I just wanted
As a
that.
team, like everybody has to be a team in order for the kids to achieve their goals.
I got the first three.
I mean, that, to me, that's actually, if not the most important thing.
enhance academic programs.
They all go together. But that one you can write on, and that one over there. And then the little gray one is the cave table, so if you just wanna work,
What is it?
the gray one with the coffee,
Collaboration.
that's called the cave.
Building
It's just like
communal
two
collaboration.
Collaboration.
Building community.
It's just, you just want quiet, you don't wanna be in the room, you just wanna.
Did you learn it from him?
And then I ordered that big orange chair, which is amazing. It's so
You got
comfortable.
one of those at my old my line.
Yeah, in the teachers.
What was the, I'm sorry, the last one, I just wanna finish.
Building. Right. And then
just write it. And it doesn't have to be straight, doesn't have to be on a line, you just write it. Flip, she has the flip up one, so you can present after you write it.
Good environment.
You know, it's funny,
Just looking at the other two.
that was in Call Place, when I was there. You have to walk through buildings, you go to a house, and I feel like the elementary building I was in, but I feel like when you walk through our building,
We have a couple of bars.
we have a whole.
We have a couple of bars of people.
Oh, yeah.
There's something out of the,
We got a couple.
out of the Luke
No,
family.
and I never want our buildings to feel like.
Like the green.
That was hoarding that
It's
one.
like, you know, it's a subjective
That green?
measurement, but
Oh,
it
green.
really
How big
felt
is
that
it?
way when I was in Call Place.
That's good.
That's one difference.